like, where do you put him next? Because he's either fought.
He's gotten 2 title shots. Come on. He needs.
Yeah.
I mean, look.
I don't think he needs another title shot anytime soon. Like, it's just not going to happen.
I just don't see it happening, really.
No. I look at it.
He's ranked at number 5.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, where.
He's going to have to fight people below him. It's. I mean, as of right now.
Yeah. I mean, do you give him a Chiesa? Do you give him Neal Magny? Neal Magny would be a good fight.
That is a good fight.
But I just don't know if he's going to be able to hang with those guys. Like, no. I feel like the recipe with Geoff Neal was that, okay, the dude's 13-2, now he's 13-3. Doesn't have a whole lot of experience. I'm 16-4, so I've had a couple more fights. I've had X amount of number of kickboxing matches. Like, the dude's like 75-0 in kickboxing for Thompson. So, but looking at that performance, it was literally that karate stance that pick him apart.
Yep.
But what was weird was the punch combinations he was throwing too.
He was.
It was insane. He's been working on his boxing.
He was.
Yeah, so I mean, that fight to me, that to me was a dominant performance from Thompson.
I mean, it was 50-45 across the board.
Yeah, and it really shows you, I mean, there's levels to this shit. Like, there's, Geoff Neal sitting at 11, Thompson sitting at 5. There's a big gap between there to where it's like, what are you going to do to fill it? Thompson, I don't think he'll get the Jorge Masvidal fight because they're talking about booking Jorge and Colby, which
I want that fight.
Fireworks, man.
I need that fight.
Colby wins that fight.
I think so.
Colby wins that fight.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm thinking.
Here's my prediction. If Colby does fight Jorge and beats Jorge might retire.
No.
Jorge's old, man.
He's been doing it a long time.
He's been doing it a while. He's backyard brawling.
But Colby gets another title shot after that. You got to give it to him.
Yeah.
We're talking about after Burns, obviously, and Usman.
And I'm going to tell you this right now. Here's my prediction for Burns-Usman, since we're talking all about the welterweight division right now.
I hope you're not sleeping on Burns.
I'm going to tell you right now. 4th round, TKO victory, Gilbert Burns.
Wow.
I think he's going to...
I see Burns winning, too.
Do you think a decision, though?
Who knows, man?
Colby rocked Usman.
He did.
So it's like, if Colby can do it, why the fuck can't Burns do it?
Burns hits way harder.
That welterweight division, man, it's another one to where like the UFC has done such a beautiful job. The bantamweight division is stacked. The lightweight division is stacked. The heavyweight division is getting there. The light heavyweight division is stacked. The welterweight division is stacked. The middleweight division, I mean, literally.
But the premier divisions are the welterweight and lightweight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Yeah. I would say bantamweight too, man.
Bantamweight is stacked.
I mean, there's some great fights still to come in bantamweight.
Yeah.
You've got Corey Sandhagen and Frankie Edgar in 2021. That's a kickoff right there. I love it. But I think looking back at the welterweight division, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson has to fight a Neal Magny. I don't want to see Damian Maia fight anymore. I really don't.
Yeah.
No.
Give him a send-off fight. I think he has 1 fight left on his contract, is what they were saying.
Find someone
a little grappling match and get him out of here.
Find someone who looks up to him and have that be the send-off fight. Similar to like Uriah Hall, Anderson Silva.
Exactly.
Let him headline a card. Send him off on his way.
Who's nicer than Damian Maia in the UFC? I mean, he is just the most honorable, respectful. I mean, you can't say a bad thing about Damian Maia.
No, he's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Like the dude, and he's a killer on the ground.
He is.
So I think that division, when it comes to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, you're not going to get Leon Edwards. You're not going to get Gilbert Burns. You're not going to get Colby. You're not going to get Usman. You got to kind of look down, man. I mean,
it's how it's got to be right now.
It's what it is. You know what would be dope? Put him up against Chris Weidman. Have Chris Weidman move a little bit of weight.
Stephen Thompson?
Yeah. Have them fight each other.
Do you know they're related?
They're like related by marriage?
Yeah, by marriage.
That would be a family affair.
Oh my God.
That would be awesome.
Thanksgivings and Christmas are going to be so awkward.
And that would be the most American fight of all time.
Oh, those are the two most American guys in the UFC.
That's like Dan Severn and Don Fry.
Yeah.
Like, you can't give it much more.
Straight up America.
Yeah, so that to me, I mean, it's going to be weird to see where they place Thompson next. Geoff Neal, obviously, he's going to go down a couple. Set him up with Pettis.
I like that.
Pettis has so many options right now. He really does. Yep. Robbie Lawler, hate to say it, he shouldn't even be in the rankings. I mean, he's been out for quite a while now. He was supposed to fight Mike Perry. That welterweight division, there's a couple old souls in there.
Yeah. But that's a good problem to have for Dana White in the UFC.
Because you get
it's so stacked.
You get those 20 through 15s that can move up.
We got to move certain legends off.
Yeah.
That's just a good problem to have.
Yeah. Speaking of Dana White, it's kind of weird, man. It's been a little quiet when it comes to who's getting cut.
Yes, it has
We talked
been.
about this last week, and we're like, man, this is going to be the week.
Got my guesses.
You got more guesses?
No, the ones we've already talked about.
Okay, so I've got a couple new guesses.
Since watching the fights?
Since watching the fights,
yeah,
yes.
Last night.
I was going to say Jose Aldo, but he had such a great performance.
I doubt it. I think he's sticking around.
I think Greg Hardy sticks around for a little bit.
Same.
I think that people like Bren Rothwell. I don't think he'll be around much longer.
Yep.
I think, and I hate to say it,
might as well put up the rankings.
Yeah, he hasn't been in the octagon in a while, but here's another guy, Luke Rockhold. Yeah. Like, they might just say...
Just non-active. Probably get paid good money
and
per
here's the
fight.
other thing. The UFC has to offer you 3 fights a year, or is it every 6 months? I think it's a year.
Per year.
Yeah, they have to
by
offer you...
by law, by contract, whatever.
3 fights. So you got to figure.
And if they don't deliver, they have to offer it to you. That's
unless you're Nate Diaz. Yeah. Then you can just sit out.
He's on a whole other program.
You can just sit out as long as you want if you're the Diaz brothers.
But I think they have to offer you the fight.
Yes.
And then that's their part.
Yep.
Whether you take it or not, they've offered it, that's it. That means they don't have to pay you.
It's like an independent contractor thing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you want to take this job? And you could say no, but after saying it no 3 times, they're going to find somebody else to do it.
Boom.
So
their obligations are done at that point.
Obviously, fighters like in the heavyweight division, like Alistair Overeem, they're going to stick around for a little while longer. He's had a couple good fights, but let's go division by division.
I've got the heavyweights pulled up right here,
and let's just look at the top 15 because you're not immune to getting cut if you're in the top 15. You're not,
bro. Andrei Arlovsky.
Send that man home.
He gets paid $350,000 a fight.
A fight.
$350,000 per fight.
Yeah.
And he's lost quite a few recently.
So looking through that, you obviously got Andrei Arlovsky.
I think so.
And Junior Dos Santos.
Junior Dos Santos, we both agreed since last week.
I'm not even going to focus on the women's division because they need to keep as many of them as possible.
Yeah, they're really trying to grow those divisions.
Yeah, so when you go up here and you start looking...
So we'll go back to...
Yeah, you start looking
We go back to light heavyweight.
Yeah, let's just work our way down. So light heavyweight, obviously, Paul Craig will stick around.
Yeah, I think so.
Ryan Spann might get the cut. Johnny Walker's good. Nobody really in... the light heavyweight division.
I think they're safe.
Yeah.
Middleweight might be a different story.
Middleweight is looking
So they already
rough.
got rid of or parted ways with Yoel.
Yeah. Brad Tavares.
Yep.
He's gone. I would say he's
Think
gone.
so?
Yep. I think that he's gone. I think if Uriah Hall hadn't beat Silva, he's gone.
Weidman, if he loses to Uriah Hall, aren't they booked?
Yes. He is booked.
They're
coming up in 2021.
Yeah,
yes.
I know they're booked.
Yep. And then obviously anybody in the top 10 is somewhat safe.
I think they're good there.
I would say
welterweight.
Yeah, welterweight. Robbie Lawler, he's gone.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it in the top.
Damian Maia would be the other one.
Damian Maia, if he loses his next fight, they're going to send him a goodbye package.
Yeah.
I really think that they will.
Lightweight.
Looking at lightweight, that's really hard. There's so much talent in the lightweight division.
Yeah.
You can't. What are you going to do?
And that's their premier division.
Yeah. And then that goes to
featherweight.
Featherweight, yep. Really nobody
Edson
in there.
Barboza?
Yep. I think him, and I think maybe even Jeremy Stevens.
Really?
Yeah, you got to look at these fighters that are old. And old in MMA is
been doing it a long time.
It's 35 to 40. You're old.
Yeah,
you're old.
Yeah, it's a young man's game for sure.
Yeah. So looking at the Peter Yan division, the bantamweight division, that division actually looks pretty solid.
It is, and it's a lot of young killers.
If anybody, it would be Dominic Cruz, and he's going to stick around because he's fighting Casey Kenny in 2021.
And he commentates. He's straight. He's good.
And I think that when you commentate, you kind of have like a. You could stick around and commentate, and if you want to fight, look at it's like the Paul Felder effect.
Yeah.
Flyweights.
They were ready to cut the whole damn division. Yeah. That's an exciting
Tim Elliott,
division.
If he hadn't fought 4 times or 3 times this year, I'd say, he might get the cut. And I think he went like 1-2 in 2020. Like it was kind of rough for him. But they'll keep him around. They need as many people in that division as possible. Now, with that being said. Do you think we're going to get the 60 cuts? Because, what are you going to do it on Christmas Day?
Oh, they'd probably do it even at the top of the year. It might not.
You think so?
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe this week. It might happen this week.
It's going to be a busy week for MMA. You know what? And now that I think about it, maybe Dana was like, yo, let him get that UFC experience of enjoying the fights as a fighter, and then we fucking cut their ass next week.
Dude, Dana White is ruthless.
He's ruthless, man.
I like the guy.
I watched some of those Dana White Tuesday Night Contender series, and the way that he talks to those fighters after they just bust their ass, he's like, yeah, this dude needs work. Tell him to come back. And it's like, ouch. But that's realness. That's business.
Yeah,
that's like, don't take it personal, but you kind of have to take it personal because it's a personal sport.
It's the fight game. You can't be sensitive.
Yeah, and you can't be sensitive, but at the same time, imagine training 6 to 8 weeks, busting your ass, doing 2-a-days. Yeah. You get in there, and you put on what you think is a dominant 3-round performance, and then you hear the president of the company saying, nah, send it back to regionals.
Yeah, get back to the regional circuit.
Oh, it hurts. But looking at that, and speaking of the 60 fighters that are being cut, you also have to look at the Contender Series.
Yeah.
To me, I love the Contender Series.
That's like a feeder.
That is a feeder.
Right into the UFC.
But it is the reason why 60 fighters are getting cut. I don't think it has anything to do with a pandemic. I think
neither.
The UFC had the most successful year this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not getting that live gate revenue, but you're getting subscriptions like crazy through ESPN Plus.
And guaranteed money from ESPN. Like whatever it was, $750 million. As long as the UFC delivers the fights, which they have been, they're getting that guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And then the pay-per-views, they get obviously additional revenue on top of that.
Yeah.
The subscriptions, like you said.
Yeah.
And then they have TV deals across all over the country. I'm sorry, all over the world.
Right.
With England and Australia.
And then the sponsorship money that's coming through.
The UFC is killing it right now.
Well, and they just signed with Venom, who's going to be the new clothing sponsor for the UFC. So
the UFC is not hurting at all.
Not hurting. But I think what it is when it comes to these 60 fighters getting cut, and I mean, they're really going to have to...
They're just shaving and saving money.
But they're going to have to drop some names, man.
I think so.
Like, it's going to get fucking crazy.
Yeah, it will.
I mean, you could do 10 fighters a day for 6 days. I mean, maybe 5 fighters a day for 10 days because they have cut.
I mean, you got old veterans, right? You're probably paying $200,000, $300,000 a fight.
They don't
you got people like Kevin Holland who are way more exciting, up and coming, and probably paying them less than half that.
Oh, yeah.
So look at the money they save just in that alone.
And really, in this sport, you either have to become a superstar or stick around long enough until they cut you.
Yeah.
Like, it's the fight game. Where else are you going to go? You could go to Bellator and get paid more, but I hate to say it, less people are going to be watching.
Way less people.
Like, the UFC is the NFL. You know, I had someone comment and say, how come you don't cover Bellator? How come you don't cover... And the other thing is that really, like, it's still... You know how somebody says something to you and it sticks in your brain? Someone had mentioned the other day why you and I did not cover the Tyson card. And I said, well, we did cover it. And they're like, no.
We touched on it.
You didn't really, cover it.
We're not going to go deep into that.
It wasn't a fight. It's an exhibition for one.
Yeah.
It wasn't sanctioned.
Yep.
You know, they talk about this Jake Paul character. I hate to say it, he's not a fighter.
Right.
Like, he's had one... I think Easy corrected me yesterday. I said, the dude hasn't fought in a sanctioned match. And Easy said, I think he's had one.
Right.
So I'm not going to cover shit like that.
And
we cover...
We mostly cover MMA specifically, and then we touch on,
Right, we touch on the Bellator stuff. If there's a crazy Bellator fight, we'll talk about it. But to me, the UFC is the pinnacle. It's the NFL of the MMA.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to talk about washed-up fighters or YouTube stars in length and in detail.
And not just that, there's 600 fighters in the UFC alone.
Yeah.
That's enough content for us to talk about.
Yeah, speaking of content, we're going to wrap this show up for this episode, but next week...
Time flies when you're having fun.
Next week, we're going to go through our favorite fights of 2020.
I think so.
It's so crazy to me that this year...
I've got some right now that I can think of.
Yeah, don't say any of them.
I'm not. I'll save it.
I want to know your top fives and whys, because to me... This year
I feel like we're going to have some similar ones, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but this year to me has been an incredible 2020 for the UFC. I can't think of a better time to get into the fight game as a fan, even if you're a casual fan. You've got this podcast that will keep you knowledgeable and entertained, and we're always doing interviews. But 2020 has been one hell of a year. 2021 is already getting set up to just blow it out of the water. I mean, Calvin Kattar and Max Holloway headlining a card, and that's the first card of the year.
That's the first card of 2021.
Crazy.
What a way to kick off.
Which, by the way, we will be doing these shows on Sunday. Obviously, there's not another fight card for another 3 weeks, but don't worry.
Yeah, I think we'll still do the podcast.
Yeah, the UFC does not sleep. There will be plenty of stuff to talk about. We're going to do the 2020 recap next week, and then going into January, we're going to start talking about the cards in January.
Yeah,
because
we have to.
By the time we stop talking about them, the next fight's already started. Like, there's 3 weeks of a little bit of a rest, but we're still going to be in here doing the show.
I guarantee there'll be some news in between that time.
Here's the other thing, too. The show is expanding. So we have the Sunday show. Obviously, we'll be doing the watch parties for the big fights. We've got 2 of those in January 16th, and then January 23rd. We're also expanding the show and doing a Wednesday edition and a Friday edition. Super excited about that. More details to come. Follow us on social media at Art of Combat Pod. Ace, as always.
My man.
You are my brother. I appreciate you. If anything fails, I could always jump on your back and we could stick on a 2-on-1, something like that. Peace and love to you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And we will talk to you next week, or this week, but you get it.
You get what we're saying.
Yeah.
Another one bites the dust.